Well, good morning. Thanks for being here with us this morning. The Senate Rules Committee just passed two bills and one resolution that will be on the floor for Monday. And in this last election cycle, one of the recurring themes that we heard talked about was the issue of the 10th Amendment and the separation of powers between the state and the federal government. So in that vein, we have declared Monday, in the state Senate anyway, 10th Amendment Day, and we have three pieces of legislation that draw a clear distinction between what we believe to be the powers of the federal government and those that are reserved to the states and to the people. In fact, now that I have the microphones in front of me, I'm going to take the opportunity to actually read the 10th Amendment because it makes it plainly clear why legislation like this is important. The powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution nor prohibited by it to the states are reserved to the states respectively or to the people. The three issues that we will take up on Monday, and there's an additional issue we'll take up in coming days, begin with the Georgia Energy Freedom Act, which I'll let Senator Seabaugh talk about. A bill by Senator Loudermilk that really strikes at the heart of the Commerce Clause, and that is whether we can produce and sell in our own state products that are not regulated by the federal government, such as the simple matter of light bulbs. And the third issue, perhaps the most weighty, being Senate Resolution 55 by Senator Judson Hill, dealing with the Healthcare Freedom of Choice Act. So with that, I'll start with Senator Hill, who can talk about Senate Resolution 55.
Thank you, and thank you for being here. Senate Resolution 55 does one thing. It protects the freedoms of all Georgians to choose the health care of their choice, whether it be government-run health care, a private health insurance plan, or the right to exercise the freedom not to participate whatsoever without the fear of being fined or punished or penalized. I believe Georgians deserve that right, regardless of the constitutionality and the challenges on Obamacare today. Whether that bill survives those constitutional challenges or fails, Georgians deserve that right, and I believe they deserve to have it permanent in the Georgia Constitution. That's why I've reintroduced Senate Resolution 55 once again this year. We passed the bill, and it is Georgia law today, Senate Bill 317, which became Senate Bill 411, to do just this, to make it Georgia law. But I believe Georgians deserve this right to be permanent in the Georgia Constitution. That's why I proposed the constitutional amendment once again. Thank you.
Next will be Senator Seabaugh to discuss the Georgia Energy Freedom Act.
Thank you, Mr. Leader. Proud to be here and have an opportunity for us to talk about on Monday an issue that affects industry and jobs in Georgia, and that has to do with the threat of cap and trade, not just legislation, but also from Department of EPA passing rules and regulations that may be very onerous on the state of Georgia and could affect jobs. Senate Bill 9 will simply require for the delay of implementation of any federal program that deals with this until we do a comprehensive analysis to understand what the total cost is and what the regulatory requirements will be on behalf of the state. And if the federal government tries to take any punitive action against us while we go through what I think is very sensible in doing a comprehensive analysis, then we're directing the Attorney General to sue on behalf of the state of Georgia and the citizens of the state of Georgia to make sure that we're protected as we go and do that analysis as we should do. Thank you very much.
Senator Charlie Bethel has a measure that's been introduced, the Interstate Healthcare Compact, that he'd like to discuss. It's not on the schedule for Monday, but it will be before the Senate in coming days.
Thank you very much, Mr. Leader. The discussion of the 10th Amendment should not end on Monday. While it will be busily debated, I'm sure, in our Senate, on Tuesday we'll have a hearing on Senate Bill 177, which is the Interstate Health Care Compact. Couple of numbers. There's over 300 million Americans, and we have what, at least for now, is the largest economy in the world. I will tell you, personally, having been and still being a health plan administrator for my employer, it is inconceivable and irresponsible for our federal government to believe that it can manage health care at the national level. It will be a challenge for states to do so at the state level, but it is where that responsibility should reside. The Interstate Health Care Compact is designed to allow the federal government to agree that it will step aside in those states that have taken responsibility for managing and regulating health care within their borders. We will be moving the bill through committee and hopefully to the floor to continue the discussion of the rights that Georgians do and should retain. Thank you.
I'll be happy to talk offline about other bills than the ones we're focusing on here today. Today we're here to announce the 10th Amendment Day, which is coming on Monday, to discuss those pieces of legislation that will be part of that day. And so if there's any questions on that, myself or any senator behind me will be glad to answer those. The light bulb bill, Senator Loudermilk has introduced this bill. And what it pertains to is really the Commerce Clause that has been interpreted to say that only the U.S. Congress can regulate commerce in between states. But if a product is manufactured, distributed, and sold and consumed in a single state, we hold that the federal government has no right to regulate that. And as of right now, the federal government's attempting to regulate light bulbs and whether we can have incandescent light bulbs. This would simply allow the state to produce those light bulbs, to distribute those light bulbs within our borders, and to consume those light bulbs and have no regulation by the federal government. You'd have to ask Senator Loudermilk that question. I don't know of any, but that's not an area of expertise of mine. Well, here he comes right here, so he can answer light bulbs. This is our light bulb expert, so we'll let him.
There's the idea, man.
Sorry for being late. I had a little bit of work going on in Legislative Council, but the federal government has taken on to ban certain types of light bulbs by 2014, those being the incandescent light bulbs. And to my recollection, it's the first time that the government has decided to force us to purchase a product that is more dangerous to use and more dangerous to the environment over something that is more friendly to the environment and much safer for the individual to use. The federal government has determined that instead of using the traditional incandescent light bulb that we have used since Thomas Edison invented those, and they use common raw materials that are in abundance in the United States and safe to use, is that we're to use the new compact fluorescent lamps which contain mercury. It only takes about 200 of those lamps, the amount of mercury in about 200, to contaminate a 2-acre pond to where it could no longer sustain life. The procedures if you break one of those lamps in your home is quite extensive, including opening all the doors and windows, shutting off your air handler system, evacuating everybody from your home, totally covering your body, including a respirator, and then picking up the residue with a piece of duct tape, sealing it into a plastic bag. Do not put it into your landfill, but dispose of it in a safe manner. We feel in the state of Georgia that it should be the consumer's choice to determine if they want to use a supposedly more energy-saving light bulb than the traditional incandescent lamps. So simply my bill says is if we produce an incandescent light bulb in the state of Georgia, it is sold and it is used here in the state, then the federal government doesn't have the authority to regulate it. Hopefully that this will return some of the numerous jobs that the United States has lost to China, since China manufactures 85% of the CFLs. So we hope that maybe this would entice some of our manufacturers to look at locating in Georgia, and that we can create a vibrant industry of a traditional American industry of producing these incandescent lights to be used here in the state and exported abroad. Well, that's one thing we could do, is ban the compact fluorescents, but I think that at this point right now it should be the consumer's choice. There are ways that you can dispose of them, but that you have to take those to a recycling center that will recycle them, dispose of them properly. The problem is most people are just throwing those and they end up in our landfill. But I think it's more prudent on us to reduce government regulation, just not put more government regulations in place. That we don't have any that produce incandescent bulbs right now in the state of Georgia. There is still one remaining in the United States. I believe it's Sylvania Corporation is still manufacturing incandescent light bulbs. But the majority of the plants have already closed. Many of those have moved over to China. Yes.
Actually, this week I met with a new company that's actually patented a new light bulb that is very innovational and very safe. And they are a Georgia-based company, so yes, we can do this if we have the capability, and the federal regulations can be either gone around, or we can stand up and protect the rights of Georgians the safety of Georgians, but also create a new company or companies in an industry in Georgia.
Yes, ma'am. Well, doing what we're doing with this bill would be a great step forward in that, because the manufacturing process of incandescent bulbs is much less expensive than the CFLs. That's why you're seeing the CFLs move overseas, because it takes 3 times the amount of energy and 3 times the amount of manufacturing process and 3 times the amount of employees to manufacture the CFLs, whereas incandescent are much less expensive to manufacture. The raw materials are much less expensive and in wide abundance. So it would be less expensive for companies to manufacture incandescent light bulbs here in the United States, especially in Georgia, as in comparison to manufacturing the CFLs, which are done abroad because of the high labor cost. And there are still, as I mentioned, manufacturers here in the United States, and I do know that as a result, Congress has stated an unintended consequence of the ban was the number of jobs that were shipped overseas because of the incandescent light bulb manufacturers closing shop, because there's not going to be a market anymore. By opening up here in Georgia, by passing this bill, it would allow manufacturers to open here in the state of Georgia, not be affected by the Interstate Commerce Clause, which would in fact give a reason for more manufacturers to open up and operate here. So,
what happened? I'm going to cut that off. Again, we're proud to announce the 10th Amendment Day on Monday. We'll have all 3 of these pieces of legislation and future pieces of legislation dealing with the 10th Amendment. Thank you for your time today.